We'll move on to the next item, which is the rent program.
I think Nefertiti Jackman is positioned to provide that presentation.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Okay. So today, I just really want to provide an update for you on the launch of the rent program, which will take place this Monday. But because we had not provided an update on the closeout for Rent 2.0, I want to highlight a couple of items related to that before we launch into Rent 3.0. Next slide, please. So I want to basically provide an overview of Rent 2.0 and look at the performance, how we did, and then also looking forward to Rent 3.0, making sure that we designed the program for equity so that more people can have access to the funding who need it, and then also look at some of the future funding and programs that we have. Next slide, please. So I want to provide you just a recap of rent overall. There are many similarities between both programs. The eligibility, as many of you know, households had to be within Austin's full purpose jurisdiction, making 80% or less median family income, on a current lease, and not already a recipient of other federal programs. And the households had to demonstrate a COVID-19 related income loss. And so those eligibility requirements do remain the same. Even though I'm highlighting 2.0, they remain the same. Benefits from 2.0, households could receive up to 6 months of full contracted rent. And then the rent payments were made directly to the landlord or property owner. And just to highlight some of the differences as we go forward to Rent 3.0, this time households can receive up to 15 months of assistance. We can pay 12 months in arrear and also 3 months forward. So we have to have at least 1 month going forward that we can pay. And then also this time, property owners have the opportunity to submit an application, unlike the first program. Next slide. And I just want to look at the program for which we ran from August through February 2021. And as many of you know, the goal for spending the CARES funding was December 2020. But we did add additional funding. We received additional CDBG funding, as well as we used housing trust funds. And we were able to serve just over 500 additional households. So the numbers and the statistics that you see here are based upon both the program that we ran from August through December, and then the program that is still we didn't take any additional applications. The households who had submitted applications, but we were not able to fund them because we ran out of money, we were able to serve them with the additional funds. And so these statistics reflect the total number of households that have been served to date. And this information might change slightly as there are still some ongoing items. Next slide, please. And as you can see, the majority of the households that were serviced through the program here on this slide. Next slide. And this just shows the demographic information of who was served through our program. As you can see, the vast majority of households served, there were over 2,000 households where there were households of one who were served. The vast majority, over 3,000 of the households were female-headed households. And then the demographic information, racial demographic information, which is very essential that we make sure that we're tracking this information so that we know who is being serviced. So you can see that information on the graph on the top. So over 38% identified as Latinx. And then the next largest population was 28%, and those were identified as white. Next slide, please. And so other information that we captured, I would like to note that we started collecting the information regarding veteran status much later after we started the program. So that's why that number is so low. And we don't know if it would be higher or not, but when we began to collect that information, we had about 20 people that identified as a veteran. And the number of households with children, you can see with one or more children is listed on the bottom. And so we had just over 500 in each of the various categories of 1, 2, 3. And we are certainly going to increase our outreach to households with families. And we started a great partnership with AISD, and we plan to continue that. One of the things that I certainly like to highlight, which I think is a success of the program, was the number of families that we were able to serve at 30% median family income. And that was over 3,000 households that fit in that category. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So one of the things that we want to do, we continue to meet with a number of our partners just to make sure that we were able to provide a program that was responsive to the unique needs of the families and households within Austin. We met with many city leaders, community partners, and where we could and when we could, we were able to tweak the program. And so this is why I feel with each iteration of the RENT program, we've been able to improve the program. And one of the things that I certainly think will help is the landlords having the opportunity to initiate an application. So once either party, a tenant or landlord, starts the application and submits an application, the other partner will be identified or notified so that they can start their application process. And that was one of the challenge with getting funding out quickly before, is waiting on another party or the landlord to be responsive. And so we don't necessarily have to wait for a tenant in order to start or initiate an application with the landlord. We're also working with many community partners to make sure that we can reduce as many barriers to applications. In response to Ms. Joseph's question, she mentioned we are partnering with LBWIN. It's important that we partner with local communities on the ground. But we do understand the need to expand the outreach to various communities. And so one of our contracts for this program is with Adisa Communication for the purpose of really doing a better reach with within the African American community. The program is designed to be accountable, making sure that we're capturing demographic information, and it is very targeted, prioritizing households at 30% AMI. And we're targeting 3 populations, priority populations: households at 30% AMI, persons who have been unemployed within the last 90 days, and then also persons and households who have experienced homelessness. And the other thing that we like about the program, it allows for up to 12 months of back payment of rent. And so a program with sustained funding will allow more families to become stabilized as, hopefully they can move on to other challenges that they might face with the ongoing pandemic. And rent is one thing that should be covered as a result of this. Next slide. Okay, and briefly, Yes, I'd like to look at our current rent program. As I shared, the program will open on March 15th, and so we're happy to announce that. We did receive $29 million in funding from the U.S. Treasury Department. As I shared, we will prioritize unemployed persons. That is the priority from the Treasury Department. Assistance also prioritizes persons under 50%. AMI and utility assistance is available under this program. However, we have partnered with Austin Energy. And so when households submit their application, they can check a box letting us know that they would like if they're okay with us sharing information with Austin Energy, there will be no further verification process, but we will be able to connect them with Austin Energy, and they will do the verification with no additional documentation required, and they will pay the utility bills for Austin Energy customers. And so we feel like we have designed a much more streamlined application process, removing some of the previous burdens that people had with the documentation requirements. And I would say greater guidance from the Treasury Department in terms of what is allowable for this program. Next slide. And we are continuing our tenant stabilization programs. In addition to direct rental assistance, we have launched a program, the I Belong in Austin program with El Buen Samaritano, and that will allow us to handle negotiated settlements, which will be handled between a partnership with El Buen and Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. As well as there is funding in there for moving and storage. In the event that people are faced with eviction as the only option, then there is funding available through that contract that can help support that. In addition to that, El Buen is also leading the Texas Emergency Rental Assistance Program through a contract that the city has with TDHC, Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. And that one is focused on eviction diversion. So they'll be helping with that. And then Austin Tenants Council, we have expanded or had another contract which will allow funding. They've had increase in a need for telephone services. They've had to increase their staffing as well. They've seen a significant increase in calls. So through the tenant and landlord mediation and phone counseling services, we have expanded or added a new contract to help households impacted by COVID-19. Next slide, please. I think that's it. Yeah, that should be it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Jackman or the other staff? And so just to reiterate, the applications are opening back up March 15th. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
And I assume you'll get us all good information so that we can share that out.
Yes, you should be receiving a memo tomorrow with all the details.
Great, thank you.
I think so. Okay.
There's a memo kind of that's going to the full council that should be going out actually today, and then there's the usual press marketing kind of information that will be coming out as well today. So all well in advance of when we have our press conference and kind of officially launch on Monday.
And then this programming is based on prior federal funding and city funds. This doesn't count the funding that likely is coming our way from what Congress just authorized.
Correct. So this is funding coming through the U.S. Treasury for emergency rental assistance. Those dollars are new, and we're still assessing. There's actually some interesting opportunities beyond emergency rental assistance that will be hopefully coming, that will be kind of in the vein of helping folks with their housing situations. And so we're working with our government relations folks to prepare some, to digest what Congress just passed, and to get more information out about all of that.
Well, I really appreciate this. I think that, again, when you look at the numbers of evictions filed anywhere in the country, Austin and Minneapolis are really leading the way amongst bigger cities of keeping eviction filings low and being able to not just prevent the evictions, but help people clear the back rent is really important. So I appreciate that we're getting this money out. I hope that we make sure to continue to pair our rules with dollars so that we don't hit a wave of eviction filings ever, and manage to keep everybody in their homes. So as we look through what's coming in the next bill and what we have now, I think we just need to make sure we find a way to make sure that we keep the evictions as low as we have, because we actually have had fewer evictions filed during the pandemic than we did before the pandemic, and I think that's a really important thing that we've managed to achieve as an entire community. Also, I hope that we continue to make sure we have the right level of mix of general funds and federal funds so that all different kinds of people that apply for funds are able to utilize the programs as we have them. Any other questions here from the group? Okay. Well then, and I heard that we just got the memo. I think my computer just beeped me. You might have heard that. So before we were done with the item, we got the memo. Thank y'all.
Good timing.
And so, one thing I did get hear a note, I think, as Jackman was running through the slides, and I think she had mentioned, that the majority of folks were at those lowest income levels, that the majority of folks that received it were people of color. And then I think you maybe said that the majority of folks were in households of one, but I think that's the biggest, the plurality, the biggest number of folks, but actually the majority of households were larger than one, because once you add up the 2, 3, and 4 person households, that it's still a majority of people in larger households than one person. But I appreciate the work y'all are going to do with AISD to make sure we get to all of the families with kids. So thank y'all for that. I know it's a huge program. It's helped thousands of people, and it's bigger than anything we've ever done before. So I appreciate how hard that has to be to do. Mandy or Rosie, do you have any sense of how much more this is than anything we've ever done on rental assistance?
I mean, by a factor of, I can't even imagine. It's, and the next round will be probably about the same amount that what we received with this Treasury amount. So it's unheard of. This has been probably the biggest program that we've deployed on a single purpose, above even or rivaling maybe Go Repair, but it's a substantial. I mean, I don't have words because it's so big.
Mandy, it looked like you were going to add something.
No, I was just going to say unprecedented. We haven't done this previously. This was a program we had talked about pre-COVID, because we know even before we knew what COVID was, there's a need for rental assistance. We know that. But this really spurred us on to pull together a program quickly, and as Nefertiti said, build on it. And hats off to Nefertiti and her team, who have handled the stress with professionalism, and they're extraordinary. And this has been huge for our department and for our city.
And we absolutely could not have accomplished this without Nefertiti and her team. So I echo what Mandy said.
That is a fact. Yep.
Well, thank y'all. I appreciate it. And it looks like there's still a lot more help to give, but I think that we can get there. I'm hopeful that we can get there to really stay at the very bottom of that list on eviction filings all the way through this pandemic. So thank y'all.